Hi there, it's Galen, design team member with Unity Stamp Company. Today I have a watercolor tea or coffee cup card, and I'm showing how I use a blender brush plus watercolor for coloring. Also, I'm going to show a little bit of stenciling with Distress Oxide ink. So for the stamping, I have Unity Stamp Company kit. It's called Cup Floret by Gracie Design, and it's beautiful. This stamp is so big, it's almost as large as my hand. And so it's with the sentiment as well. I'm using dies by My Creative Time, etched edges dies, and I'm using a stencil by My Favorite Things. That's actually the snow stencil. And so I am starting with Canson watercolor paper and an original Misty, and I'm stamping that cup layer in brown waterproof ink. I use Gina K Designs amalgam ink in the color of chocolate truffle, and that is waterproof. You can also use Copic markers with that ink. It's real versatile, and it's pretty. So I wanted a brown for this coffee themed or tea themed card. I'm also using Distress Oxide ink blending, and so for the dots in the back, I wanted a very light background, and I used wilted violet for the background, and I used walnut stain on the edges of that etched background panel. For the background panel, I just used the Distress Oxide ink pad directly to the edges. You can use a blending brush if you want to as well. I wanted it really dark and just in a small area, so I just used the ink pad directly. I listed the watercolor markers I'm using here on the video and on my blog. I'm using Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens or markers in shades of lavender and teal and a little bit of brown. And so the way I'm showing how I did this particular card is I use the Zig markers or brushes, and I use the color directly onto the watercolor paper where I want the outline to be, or where the outline already is, and just trace over it in some of the areas. I do this process in smaller sections at a time so that I get to blend it out before it dries. And so for the blending, I'm using the Zig Blender brush. I just got this and I really like it. I was using either a water brush or a watercolor brush for this in the past, but I like the blender brush because it's a little stiffer. It holds its shape, so you can get into tiny areas with it. That's my favorite thing about it. But you just dampen and wet that blender brush and go along the edges where you have that watercolor added and blend it out. And you can get lighter if you want. I am going for a very bold purple and pink look to this flower, so I kept the color saturated, but you can add tiny bits and smaller touches of color and blend that out with even more water, and you'll get a lighter look. So watercoloring is very versatile. If you want to lighten it, add water, tap some of the water away with maybe a paper towel or another brush, and just you'll have a hue of the color, a hint of the color versus the full saturation of the color. So I use different colors. For watercolor, I started with purples, and I added pink, and then I blended them together to get sort of a variegated flower look. And for the leaves, I added the teal. And so now I'm speeding it up only for the sake of time. It took a long time to do this one. So I just added some gold, orangey yellow color around the outline of that teacup and saucer. And I'm trying to get more of an ivory bone china look. I don't know, but it turned out how I wanted it. Very light, pale yellow color. And so you blend that around the edges with that blender brush. And for the middle, for the tea or coffee, I added watercolor, very watery. So I added water to that center first, and then I dabbed brown into that water and you can see it moves around easily that way, very loose, and that's what I wanted. When you heat set it, that brown, it moves even more and it dries that way, so it gives it a look of a liquid in the middle there. It looks so much prettier in person though. So I added foam tape and I fussy cut that saucer out. I have this background panel ready. I'm going to position this background panel with flat double-sided tape right onto the card base, more towards the top, because I have a lot on the bottom of this saucer that I need to leave room for. And so I added the saucer with foam tape and a couple of adhesive gems to finish. Thanks so much for watching. Please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.